What's up, guys? Another episode of Off the Post, and I'm your host, DJ Rick. Yep. And we aren't doing a review, but we are messing around and talking about some serious issues right here. It's a little special we're going to do, and it's on the Matildas. As you know, they recently went on strike, and some of us people who bought tickets to the game are, I guess we would say, a little but we understand the situation, so we'll get into that shortly. As you can see, the panel here, you know them. We can go through the panel and what they got to say first, I guess. Courtney, how you doing right now in the middle of the day?
Good, just, taking the little bit of time I have during the day today to do this lovely little chat with y'all. So, it's an important issue, so I'm glad that we're talking about it.
Jen Carl, how are you doing?
Good. Not much different since I last saw you on Monday.
Always great.
Wow.
And Jen Hayes, how are you doing?
I'm really tired. I had to rush home to make it on time today, so.
No.
But I did say I'd be here, so I am here and ready to get this started.
All right, let's do it then. So we'll jump right on in. If you guys have anything to say, I'm guessing most of you should be at work or doing something, so just leave comments in the section below the video, and we'll get back to them and discuss with you later, or on Facebook or any other site that you might see this video on, and we will discuss this with you. I guess our first question is really just talking about the Matildas that not even being paid for 2 weeks, and they say, like, the PFA down there, their chief said that the players have the right to make the decision as they're not under contract to not go off with the training or go to the games, and it's like really their choice to not even participate in the activities because there was a signing they didn't participate in as well. So do you guys believe this is the right course of action for them to go? We will start with you first, Courtney.
Yeah, I think, just to clarify, I think it was the men's team that didn't go to the signing that they were supposed to go to. I don't know if that was the women's team or not, but I mean, I think it is. Obviously, it's you don't want anyone to you don't want things to get to that point where people are striking, but especially if they're not under contract. I know a lot of times in like the women's soccer world we talk about the fact of people like players not being paid fairly. I know it comes up in the NWSL a lot. And we talk about other federations that aren't U.S. soccer. So I think that's something that we talk about a lot, and I mean, especially if they don't have a contract right now, like why would you play if you don't have a contract, especially if you're trying to just get what's fair to you and the other side's not budging, like why would you show up? I mean, that sucks for people who like were looking forward to seeing them play, but I don't know if people remember at the start of the 2013 NWSL season, and I'm not going to comment too much on it because I'm not that familiar with it, but there was a delay with teams getting their allocated players actually into preseason and into training, and that was because, they were trying to come up with a new bargaining agreement, and it wasn't in place at that time, so they weren't playing or weren't practicing until that went into place. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, if you're not under an agreement or under a contract, especially if you feel like you're not being treated fairly, I definitely understand the decision not to play.
Jen Carl, your feelings on the issue?
I think this happened, well, something similar happened in the beginning of the WPS season or right after the WPS season. I can't remember exactly when it occurred. But a lot of the players went without being paid. And they faced kind of the same struggle I think the Matildas are facing now, where they still want to play, but at the same point they can't make a living off of it. So a lot of them got second, third, fourth jobs to try to still play soccer and still be able to survive. And I think the Matildas are stuck in that situation now where they still want to play, but they're finding it difficult to. And, back then it was much less of a statement. Now it's a huge statement for the Matildas to step back and decide to not play and kind of take their stand. So good for them for doing so, and they're getting a lot of support for it, so hopefully it does make the point.
And Jen Hayes, your thoughts on what they're doing right now?
I am 100% in agreement with the way with what they're doing. The fact that it had to come to this point is sad, and if these games, whatever, don't get played, then it sucks for the people who paid a lot of money to buy those tickets, and that's not just the only area that's going to suffer, but I'm reading at what they're asking for, and it's really not that much. It's like an additional $10,000 salary per player,
Mm-hmm.
That's not a tremendous amount to ask for. It's not certainly nearly what players in the U.S. or other places are getting, but if that, and most of these players do have second jobs. You have players that are winning awards working as plumbers, pharmaceutical assistants, coffee shop baristas, things like that, just to name a few. So if they think they can need an extra $10,000 so they don't have to have those jobs, so they can spend more time on training, then good for them. If these games don't happen so they can get what they want, then I'm fine with that.
There was also another issue about them staying in their own league and playing, and I was wondering if this was going to affect the NWSL in any way from what they were saying. Courtney, you want to talk about that for a second?
Well, I think in the article where it said that, it noted mostly like people playing overseas in different leagues. I think there's 2 people playing over in Germany right now, and I think that that's what the article referenced, because I do believe that their seasons do run, I guess, in competition with each other. As far as NWSL goes, I don't think it should. Because as we've seen for the number of people who in NWSL that go over to the W League, I think like the seasons are completely different times. So hopefully that's not a factor. I think that catch might apply more to again, people who play in different leagues where the seasons are competitive with their own in Australia. But like I said, we've seen a lot of NWSL players in the offseason go play in Australia, so I don't think that should be an issue. But it wasn't specifically mentioned, so it might be. But they were more focused on like playing in Germany or other leagues that their seasons compete.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They overseas compete. It was just a weird little thing to bring up, and it just made me think for a second, like, oh, are they going to hold these players away from the national team? Let's hope not, because they have a lot of talent that likes to play elsewhere and make some money too, because they deserve that right, as they were saying in the article, to have the opportunity to play overseas, develop as tactical and technical abilities, and it helps the national team on the world stage by getting the chance to play against better competition in other leagues. But yeah, as you were saying, Jen Hayes, it's not that much they're asking for. It's kind of weird they're being so stingent about it, but as we know, negotiations go the way that they go. Females athletes being underpaid is just a major issue to begin with overall. Jen Carl, do you think this is shed more light now that a team like Australia is holding a strike out on it?
I hope so. I think female athletes in general have really moved forward this year. Our national team winning a World Cup, other athletes in other sports like Ronda Rousey, Serena Williams, who have performed phenomenally this year. So I think female athletes in general have kind of risen up, not just in our country, but kind of globally. And the fact that Australia made such a great showing at the World Cup speaks volumes. So I think it'll shed more light on it, again, not just nationally for them, but also globally. I mean, it's hitting us very close. I'm sure it's in other nations as well. I know Germany's hearing a lot about it. England probably is as well. All of the major nations are probably hearing about it at this point, and most of them are backing what Australia is doing. So I think it's going to shed a lot of light on the issue. So hopefully it picks up and moves forward for every team.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where a lot of people, I believe, they think with these issues, it's usually from small African countries or just poor little nations that are just developing their soccer. But now you see a team like Australia, which has been developing, but they looked really good in the World Cup. So you think, oh, they're getting there. They should be fine with them when it comes to money and things. I think this is perfect that a team like this is actually in the limelight and showing that, hey, they deserve pay. Some of these bigger teams, bigger countries, deserve to have their players paid equally and on a fair scale too. And if they keep fighting for it and more people get involved, it's the better for, I think, the women's soccer in general. Courtney, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's been other examples of this in the limelight in the future. Not in the limelight, whatever. It's an issue that's been brought up before, specifically, like you mentioned. Either in like smaller, African countries, or we saw a lot of this in CONCACAF.
Mm-hmm.
Even qualifiers with the whole, the Trinidad and Tobago, how they actually had started like a fund to help them, even train or like be there for qualifiers because of like the lack of funding that they were received, and that was kind of brought to light, and that's something that was kind of a big deal at that time. But I think you're right. I think when you look at a team that people, I don't want to say are more familiar with, but have maybe featured more in international tournaments or have had more success or have been more developed than some of the previously mentioned countries. I think not that it makes, the needs and I guess struggles faced by those other countries any less significant, but I think people tend to pay more attention when they're like, oh, like Australia, what? Again, not that should be the case. I think anyone that's kind of facing, I think there's a lot of countries that are facing this, and they should all be, kind of addressed and have that attention. But I think you're right, when it is more of a bigger, perhaps well-known or established, country or team, that I think people are kind of like, wow, that happened. And for them to take such a stand to be like, we're not showing up, we're not doing this until people take us seriously. I think, other people are definitely noticing to agree with what's been said. And I think it does put it on a little bit of a bigger scale than what kind of we've seen previously.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. Now, Jen Hayes, do you think this issue will be resolved quickly, or do you see it being drawn out?
Oh, it's kind of hard to say. It's kind of hard to say because everything I've read has said both sides are pretty much digging in. The FFA won't budge. The players won't budge. So it could end up being a long, drawn-out thing, or it could end up being resolved today. We'll see. But right now, I'm leaning towards this being drawn out for a while. And the one thing I wanted to is there are going to be a lot of eyes on this situation, and if the players come out on top, they get what they want, that could actually trickle down to some of the lesser developed nations that are having trouble saying, oh, we want better treatment,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it could help them get better support from their federations. So we'll have to see what happens.
And can I just interject for just a second? Like, when we were talking about, I disagree with your point, because I think, when Randy Waldrum kind of had let everyone know what was going on when the team showed up for qualifiers and things like that, and the fact that all the help that was pouring in, once that got quite a bit of attention, if I remember correctly, the Federation in Trinidad and Tobago just magically ended up sending some more money over, like, oh, we had this money, but we just didn't send it yet. We were going to, and it seems like that, I don't want to, I don't know for sure, but it seems like that kind of attention made them look and be like, oh, no, we really had more money, we just didn't send it with them right away, which perhaps was not the case, but they just did not enjoy the attention that was put on the situation. But, so that might also be something that kind of, like, you're right, with the kind of attention on it, it might make other federations kind of be like, well, let's take a look at this.
Yeah. And now let's jump in onto the Victory Tour part of this, because this is the part that affects some of us paying, U.S. Women's National Team fans. We're going to this game September 7th, and we were so excited to see Caitlin Ford, because that's all we were all going to see, right? Okay, so it was only me. Sorry, Sky Blue moment right there. But yeah, we were so excited, and now we're going to end up seeing some random opponent choice. So we'll all get a chance to talk about this subject. I will let you go first, Jen Carl. What should U.S. Soccer do about scheduled games? Bring in a new opponent? What do you think?
This is a really tough situation for U.S. Soccer to be in, I think, because I feel like U.S. Soccer, they know that they have a victory tour to produce. They've promised the fans a victory tour, but at the same point, they still want to support the Matildas. So I think it's a very interesting predicament for them to be in. Honestly, they probably should just refund the tickets, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to end up happening is they're going to postpone dates of the Victory Tour. Well, they're definitely probably going to postpone dates of the Victory Tour. It just depends on whether or not they're going to wait for the Matildas to get all of their issues straightened out, or if they're going to schedule a different opponent. And that's a tough call to make at this point, because we do have a very good relationship with Australia and with the Matildas. So I think, us throwing our support into the mix here might benefit both us and them. So it's going to be interesting to see what U.S. Soccer decides to do in the future. I would like to see them maybe postpone the dates until the Matildas have everything straightened out, because I know personally I almost went to the Detroit game just to see Australia play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming in from BC. So, I mean, the fact that I was willing to do that to see the Matildas, I think says a lot, because they were a world-class team in the World Cup, and we want to see them continue to grow. So I think for me personally, I would like to see USW postpone until we can actually play the Matildas. I don't know that that'll be the case, but that's what I can hope for.
Jen Hayes.
Well, I don't know if they would be able to actually find a team on such short notice to come over and play those two games, because most of the European teams are tied up with European qualifiers, and a couple of the ones that don't have any qualifiers already have friendly scheduled. So that's a small problem. And then you have teams that are close by, like Canada and Mexico. Mexico is probably not an option because they're already, they haven't been in camp for a while, and it would be a tough time to get them together. So people are saying, why not just put a squad of NWSL All-Stars together and face the national team? That would not, I don't, I want to see that, but then again, I don't, because I think the national team would take that game 9 times out of 10, as unbelievable as that sounds. So I don't think they'll be able to get another opponent. I'd be surprised. So I think it might have to be either postponed or, because if they have to refund 60,000 tickets, that is a lot of money that they're throwing down, plus, having to rent the stadium and everything. So either they postpone. So I really don't know. I'm leaning towards postponement. I don't think it's going to be canceled altogether.
Courtney?
Sorry for the ramble.
Well, just from looking on Twitter, I did see, shout out to Thrace, and I'm sure other people have been reporting this, but she was the one that I saw, that U.S. Soccer was looking for a CONCACAF team to fill in those dates, and so nothing's been confirmed with that yet, but that is something that apparently they're working on. And like I said, that's coming from Thrace, who generally knows what she's talking about. So, we'll see what happens with that, but that's kind of just what I've been reading, that they're trying to talk to CONCACAF teams to play both games to replace the Matildas, but, that's nothing that's been finalized, and so I know a lot of people are kind of lobbying they want to see them play Canada, or they're a lot lobbying for like a USWNT versus NWSL All-Star game, which also has problems because the season's over, so a lot of people who, like, their teams are not in the playoffs, like, they've gone about their business, like, they've gone home, they've gone about whatever they do in the off season, some have gone overseas, so, but I don't think they refund. I think that they really try their best to get these games played, and I saw, again, I think from Hal, Keeper Notes Hal, mentioned something that, and I don't know exactly when this happened, but they had a situation with Nigeria similarly, where they pulled out on super short notice and were able to find and scramble teams during a friendly. So the only reason I don't see them refunding or postponing them, just because, from my understanding, like, U.S. Soccer was footing like the bill to bring the Matildas here, and so that's still, that's money they spent already. That's money that they spent necessarily already, but I don't see them then saying, oh, we spent all this money to bring the Matildas here, they're not coming, but we're going to refund all these tickets that we sold. And again, like was said, stadium costs, things like that. Stadium dates, again, would be potentially hard to reschedule, just because, there could be other things going on in these stadiums. I'm sure there are. So that's just what I've been reading, is that they're trying to find a CONCACAF team to replace both dates. If they can't do that, I mean, they don't really have, I guess they wouldn't really have a choice but to postpone and refund people, but I really think they're going to do whatever they can possibly to make these games happen on the date that they're scheduled. And as far as refunding tickets, like, I understand a lot of people want to go. I almost went to one of the games. I almost went to the Birmingham game because I really wanted to see Australia too, but I guess the argument for that is, like, yes, people want to see Australia play, but, like, you're paying to go see a U.S. women's national team game, and they're still going to be there, so regardless of who they play. So I could see that very much being, like a justification or, like, a reason, like, well, it doesn't matter if you wanted to see the Matildas, like, you're still seeing the national team, deal with it, and that's fine. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I guess my idea just kind of jumps off of that too, because it's one of those things where people are saying they're going to plug in a new opponent, and a lot of people are saying Canada and Haiti. Well, I don't want to see Canada or Haiti. You can take those teams and put them somewhere else, let them play against each other in some random city in Canada or Haiti. I was going to see the Matildas and U.S. Women's National Team. That was a big sale for me. So as much as, like I said, it's a victory tour and you're going to go see World Cup champions, and a lot of fans are going to go no matter what. If they plugged in like some people off the street in Detroit or Birmingham, people would go check out the game if it was one of the high schools around there. So most people won't care because you're going to see the U.S. Women's National Team. As long as Alex Morgan there, you'll have like 30,000 girls anyway. That's another story. So it doesn't really matter. So you're going to get fans no matter who they put in there. But for some of us that might have wanted to see Australia, I wouldn't mind an option of what we'd want to do with our money or tickets, because I thought that was going to be so sweet to actually see us playing a good opponent. Because the last time I went, we played Cupcake China PR, I believe it was, and it was just one of those, as I called, games where you just go there, cheer, have a good time, because you're going to put up 6 or 7 goals anyway. I actually want to see a good competition, but who knows now? It's understandable why it's not happening, so it's nothing against Matildas, but just as a fan going and paying, and for a whole month thinking you're going to go see Australia, and then all of a sudden this last or a week before, pretty much, we're learning that we're going to play against some, like I said, some random Trinidad and Tobago or some team, the Republic of Ireland of Australia, New Zealand, something, just some random opponent you really didn't want to go see. It makes it kind of like, oh, that's a downer. So money back would be great. It's not going to happen. So give us some options or something. I don't know what they're going to do. U.S. Soccer's going to keep that money, tell you to go no matter what. You're going to see these people, go and have a good time. But they should give some of us options.
I mean, I don't know if they care if people don't go either. They have your money already. So
right. And it's like, now I'm forced to go, so I better enjoy myself or else because of that. But that should be a rant for another day. But other than that, I think that's everything, guys. You guys have anything else you want to add to it? Courtney, Jen, Spirit fan?
No, not really. I think everything's been pretty much said. Like, it's just one of those. It's one of those situations that's unfortunate that it got to that point, but like you applaud the Matildas for standing up for themselves and for like Jen Hayes said, they're not really asking for that much. Like right now they're not even making minimum wage in Australia, which is crazy. So that's really like what they're asking for, is to just be paid. Even with that minimum wages, they've gone a month this year without getting paid, essentially. 2 months. 2 months without getting paid, so they've gone quite a while without getting paid. So, I mean, like, it's an unfortunate situation, and it's unfortunate that it affects, people who are going to see that game and the U.S. Women's National Team. But, I mean, ultimately, I think in the bigger picture of women's soccer, like, you have to support. I mean, you don't have to. I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, but, like, people are and should support kind of for the greater good. Like, this is what's right. And so, kudos for you, Matildas, and, I hope everything works out.
Yep, and that's everything, really, guys. Like Courtney said, she's telling you what to do, so you better do it now or else. It's another episode of Off the Pulse. It was a special, and it was pretty nice. We're behind the Matildas all the way, OTP, so you know me. We will see you guys this Saturday for a special in the playoffs. Be sure to tune in at 6:30 for that. I'm your host, DJ Redcap, and this wasn't a recap, but it was a really important episode. Take care, guys, and you guys should wave still, even though it's a special. I would like to see it. There it is. Night, everybody.